Hi folks, I hope you're well. So, come back to the last video point. The churchy thingamajiggy, the ding dong that they do, yes. The summer ding dong, yes. Yeah. Look, it's not only a case that I would think that what they were doing was bizarre, but it's also a case that they're going to think that what I was saying is also bizarre. At one point, the man from Banff River Church, he was saying, everyone here has the joy of God in them. And I said, excuse me? What are you saying? Everyone? I said, you've just said something that's a lie. I said, that's impossible. That everyone here has the joy of God in them. I said, I would probably say no. I'd say if you got as many as 20%, you're doing well. But as I say, for me, like when I was talking to the bloke who was speaking earlier, I don't even know what church this bloke goes to. He goes to a church, I don't know which one. Yeah, interesting character. Lovely man. I'd love to have a coffee with him and speak to him more. He seemed like a lovely man to talk to. But when I was saying to him about sonship and servant son sort of stuff, because he was saying, well, at one point I interjected because at one point he was saying, if I'm asked to do it, I'll do it. He was speaking to the pastor, Rick, from the Community Church of God. He's speaking to him. And when they stopped, I said, excuse me, you said, if I'm asked to do it, I will do it. I said, okay. Asked by who? And he said, oh, it's the people who do this thingamajiggy. I know them. I've known them for a long time. And I think I know who. The people who did the thing in Lossiemouth, in the council buildings, where the churches got together and did a bit of worship, and during COVID, he did all the watered down ministries, or basically brought people in to do them. Him. I'm pretty sure I was talking about him. And I said, okay. Right. And I said about the fact that when I was walking there to the area for the dogs to swim, I saw the thing from the River Church at the Albion Football Club, a board for the River Church talking about loving God and loving others. And I said, well, isn't it true that if you love God, you go to God about stuff? You're led by God. He said, yeah. I said, well, isn't it true that if you love others, you go to God, you're led by God? He said, yeah. I said, you weren't. You were speaking earlier, you were doing your ministry, and I'm not trying to judge you on this, but I'm saying you weren't being led by God in that. You didn't just beforehand go to God and say, speak through me, and if you don't give me something to say, I won't speak. You didn't do that. If you love God, you would do that. You'd let him be the one speaking through you, because that's what people need. So also, if you love people, you do that. Because that's what going to God means. It doesn't mean you have a little prayer beforehand and you go and do it your own way anyway. And so it started on talking about servants and sons. And I said, so okay. Yeah, about the prodigal son. I couldn't find the word prodigal, but eventually I got there and I understood what I was saying. I said, in that story, the son comes back and says, I'd rather be a servant for my father than a servant for those people in the world. He comes asking the father if he can be his servant. And the father says, no, you're my son. That's exactly what God is saying to each and every one of the people here. You're not a servant. And then I was saying to him about the point of, a servant will listen to the master. And the problem is the master is the devil, because the devil is the one who is the master of this world. Yeah. They want to please. They want to please people. Because when they please people, they've done a good job. That's the problem with a servant. A servant wants to please people. So most pastors are actually servants, yes. I said, the thing of it is, as a son, I said, when you go to God, when you go through Yeshua to God, like Yeshua said, no one comes to the Father except through me, so you're supposed to go through him, yes. I said, okay. When you go through him to the Father, why would you ever come back to what you did before? And that went completely over his head. He had no idea. The reason why he had no idea, because, again, they don't talk about these things in church. They don't talk about these things. In the Bible study, they don't talk about what it means to go through Yeshua. So in that scripture, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except for me. They will focus on, I am the way, the truth, and the life. They won't focus on, and no one comes to the Father except for me. They won't even look at that, because that's complicated. Yeah. To me, that's what I looked at. To me, that's what I went to God about. Because to me, I couldn't understand it. What does it mean? And how is that supposed to be walked out? Because, again, my understanding was, like I think this bloke's understanding was, when you talk about going to the Father through Yeshua, then it means, according to the church understanding, you pray to the Son then goes to the Father for you, and that's you going to the Father. Right? There's no concept about actually going to the Father, how that's walked out. So again, conversations, great. I like it. So that bloke, the bloke who was ministering at 1:30 on Saturday, I liked him. Yeah, I mean, the fact of a lot of things he said, okay. He was basically regurgitating a scripture. Not necessarily saying it in a way that's going to really help people, because of course the problem with that is, look, people say, people need scripture. Yeah, they do. But God knows exactly what the people there need. That whole event today, right? That whole event today could have been for one person. God knew exactly what that one person needed to hear. None of the people ministering knew it was about that one person or knew what they wanted to hear. God knew. Right? If they don't say what that person needs to hear and say it in a way where that person can receive it, that whole event is wasted. It's just another summer ding dong. That's all it is. And so that's the point of being led and guided by God. It's about understanding that yes, you need to use scripture, but God knows what scripture is needed, how it should be presented, right? Because he knows who needs to receive it and how they can receive it. We have no idea. None at all. But we have a God who knows. He knows every single person who was there and what every single person needed. So therefore, those people that say they're of God, they had to be led by God in that, were they? No. And that for me is confirmation that right now, it is not my concern where the church is at. It's where I'm at that's my concern. Enjoy.